Hi, welcome to Tea Time with Amy and Bev.
Good morning.
Hello.
How is your new year going?
So far, so good. Yeah, so far, so good. Doing all right.
Nice.
Getting through Mercury retrograde and the first full moon of the year. So doing okay.
It's kind of interesting you say getting through it because unless I look and see when the full moon is, because I don't pay attention to a lot of this stuff. I really don't. But then all of a sudden it's there and I'll recognize, especially at the beginning of the full moon, probably a day or two before, I think it's probably a couple days before, I started noticing some old patterns, some old thought patterns coming forward. And it was like, that's weird. And then I found out it was full moon. I'm like, well, that makes sense.
Well, there you
It's
go.
not weird anymore. Now it's just like we don't need to carry this with us along this journey any longer. It's no longer necessary, right? And that's really what the meaning is all about. And this whole year, like this whole 7 year with us all going within, it's so amazing. I feel like it's so amazing. It's amazing because I went through this. I say it's amazing because I went through this. But so with that being said, going through a personal year of a 7, right? There was some times it was things were so deep and sometimes things were so emotional. It's not a year for pushing things to happen to go a certain way. Believe me, I found that out. And I know that you had talked about it as well when you were going through a 7 year. It's really a lot of introspection. It's the old foundations that are breaking away so that the new can come forward now. We're no longer in that same space anymore. And we get to see that. We kind of talked about it last week. We get to see that with everything. We get to see that in the schools. We get to see that in religion, in politics, in the healthcare system, like all these structures that things don't make sense. You have hospitals and stuff where the CEOs are making so much money, but the people that are working their tails off 50 and 60 hours a week or more, they're the ones that are in it all the time, and they're not getting paid the kind of money that someone else is getting paid because they don't have as much of an overhead because they don't have as many employees working. So they have more of a skeleton crew that's benefiting them because they're not overpaying. There's just a whole lot of stuff that goes along with that. And with that all being said, it's just letting you know that these old structures don't work anymore. They just don't work. They're not functioning. So all of it. And it's like I was just talking to Freeman this morning, and I don't even remember what the number was, but he says since the whole COVID thing had happened, there's been like, I want to say maybe millions of people, hundreds of thousands of people have actually withdrawn their kids from the school system, from the whole system that's going on here. So it's not because, oh God, it's bad and when are we going to get back to normal? That wasn't a normal. We were taught to believe that was a normal. That was not a normal, right? We were groomed to believe this is normal. And so now it's just coming into a place where people are standing up for themselves and for equality of humans. And, there's just a lot of stuff that's going on right now. And it's amazing. And to me, for some reason, this month has kind of slowed down since all the time that we've been leading up to this. Seemed like it was like freaking full steam ahead going by. The time was going by so fast. And now I feel like the time's kind of slowed down just a little tiny bit. And maybe that's just a temporary thing. Maybe it's the retrograde thing. I don't know. But for me, it feels like it slowed down a bit. I would even notice with clients, spending time with clients at the time. I'd look at the time and it's like, we still had time. We still had plenty of time to have the conversations or whatever needed to be. And maybe that's what time's doing. Maybe it's actually with us a little bit more, working along with us. If we need to slow down because it's going too fast because we're enjoying this conversation or we're enjoying the company of the people we're talking to or whatever it is. And then other times it might speed up because it's almost like you hit the fast forward button. Let's fast forward through this part right here. We don't need to be in this part. So there's just so much stuff that's going on. It just is this is all new for all of us.
Maybe with it being a 7 year and collectively it's a time to go within that we are collectively slowing down time.
Because it's up to us, right? How often have we been hearing all of ours say, oh, time's going by so fast? Well, that's magic. You're creating magic with your words. That's your magic. That's your magical spell that you're creating right now, that time's going by faster. And we're receiving so much information in such a small amount of time. Years of information in a small amount of time.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Yeah. What we get done today in an hour years ago would have taken a week. I mean, the comparison is incredible.
Yeah,
I mean, we
it is
watch,
pretty
you know,
phenomenal.
we watch old movies, like cowboyish type movies, old. And I sit there and I think, I'm like, wow. Cause we were watching a movie where the family was from America, but one of their family members went to Africa and the mom was writing letters. And I'm thinking, man, how long did it take a letter to get to Africa back in the day? You know, like we're talking like 1900s, early 1900s at least. And it was like, it would have been at least a month, or if not 2 months, for a letter to go to another country. And I was just like, just trying to wrap my head around that. And, you know, I grew up during the snail mail era of that's all we had. And now we have this internet connection and it's just so fast. And so when, you know, just thinking about all that and where we are today it's incredible.
Well, we're in the Aquarius age too, right? So the Aquarius age is also talking about all of our technology and stuff like that. So that's going to be evolving, and it's just a matter. It's evolving in harmony, right? But we get back to the basics. It's all about how am I going to move through this world in a space of love. It's still coming. There's still basics that we have to get to. It's just basics. It's just simplifying everything, and I feel like this year helps to simplify everything because it's simple. It's simple as making a statement. It's like I choose love. It's that simple. And you know, the more that I've been doing that and having that conversation, and I got a message on the mirror that said something like, what can love do for me, or today, or whatever, what can love show me today, whatever the conversation was that I had written down that resonated with me. And it's like every time I read it, I'll notice like I'm talking to a person and I'm like, oh, good Lord. And instead of saying something bad, this is not my conversations, but it is now my conversations. Like these were not my words. And all of a sudden here they are. And it's like someone does something and I'm like, for the love of God, like, but I didn't talk like that before. This has happened in the last couple of weeks, but it's because I've been changing, simplify, right? It's I'm choosing love. I'm choosing to see things from a different space. I'm choosing to honor, like we were talking about just before we started. I jokingly or playfully said, and I do believe this. I do believe, you know, the whole Dorothy thing, you know, clicking her ankles or heels together to no place like home. But to me, it's like remembering that we're here. We came here for a reason. We came here because at some point our soul sat back and looked at this earth and thought this was the most magnificent place. I'm going to go there. I get to evolve and change and learn on a soul level, so much things and feel things that I'm going there. And we've forgotten that. A lot of us have forgotten that because we've gotten here and it's like, you might be working like the 60 or 70 hours a week and you're tired and you're hungry and you don't have time for none of that stuff because you got to hurry up because a patient, you know, you got your one nurse with 50 patients, you know, there's all this other stuff that's going on and it's standing up for ourselves. So it's like this, just really looking at all the stuff and wondering what's important to us. How is this showing up for somebody else? And it's all simple. Every single thing that we do is simple. We all came here to serve. We all came here to experience emotions, to be here, to have experience touch, to be in a physical body, to experience all these things. Even the ugly cry with boogers running down your face. We came here to experience all of it. It's like all of it is like nothing's off. I can't even think of it, what the word I'm looking for, but nothing off limits, right? Nothing is off limits. Because we're here, we came here to experience it. It's just to be in that space of joy and experiencing it. To sit out there, gosh, look around town. We got so many homes that are so right up close to each other. And I don't think that's probably exactly how everybody wants to live. And then we were talking about yesterday how independent we've been raised in the United States, that we're not here like they talk about. I was just listening to a person talking that around the holidays, that's when they start taking their loved ones that are Alzheimer's and other things and dropping them off at a nursing facility. So it's like we have all thought that we had to be raised independent. And then it's like, then your loved ones gets taken care of by someone else when it's time for them getting close to transition. Not always. That wasn't the case for my mom or anything like that. So, but I mean, it happens all the time. It's because we were taught something else that was incorrect. And I say incorrect because it doesn't even feel good. And even when you're the independent person stuck out there, that doesn't feel good either, because we need to be able to, there's got to be someone. Who do I call on for help? If I'm independent and I can't call on anybody for help, now I'm stuck because I don't have anyone to call on for help. but we're co-creators. We all came together to create. And then we've got other countries that are, gosh, living together, and might have 7 generations in the same home. That blows my mind, but because we're here in the US, right? But it's a village. And just maybe that's an extreme. Those are 2 different extremes, right? There's got to be a happy medium in the middle there somewhere. So someone doesn't feel like that this is all their responsibility. And now they're the fixer again. And, all the other things. It's not about that. It's about nurturing and showing up and loving. It's just loving.
Last week I did some Facebook lives, and I talked about how life, because I actually heard it on another podcast that think about it like we are the avatar in our own simulation.
Absolutely.
And, I think I got that from Alex Ferrari on Next Level Soul. And so I was thinking about that, and I thought, okay, so I'm the avatar in my life, and I already know that the top level of this life is in the game. Now, speaking in terms of being a game or a simulation, the top level is to love. Actually, the top level is to love unconditionally, unconditional love. Now, in a game, the ones that I have played, you start out and it's like an easier level, and you gain whatever coins, or you find weapons or tools that's going to help you get through the level. And then the next level is a little harder, and then the next level is a little harder, right? And it keeps progressing and getting harder. But to me, life is the opposite. That early in life, in my experience, I went through the hard shit. It was like, without the tools, without the gold coins, without all the things to help me sift through to get to the next level. But what I did unknowingly for a while was allow my spirit to guide me to keep going. I mean, that was the ultimate mantra for me, was just keep going, just keep going, just keep going, even though I wanted to give up. And to me, early in life was the hardest levels. And the more I just kept going, then things started coming to me. Here's a book to read. And I read that book, opened up a huge amount of topics that I didn't even know was out there, which ultimately led me to where I'm at. And now my life is easier. So the easier it gets is because the more I move toward love, which is a complete opposite of a game that you play. Right. And so I have been thinking in those terms. And so the more we move ourselves toward love, the easier our life gets. Or I know that to be true for me. I'll speak from my perspective, that my life has gotten easier and easier, because it's just like what we talk about is relax in with the stream instead of trying to paddle upstream, which we got from Esther Hicks and Abraham. So what do you think about that? I mean, I
totally agree. I totally agree. Because I hear people, and I've probably heard Alex say that too, but I've heard people say these kind of things, and it really does put you in a different perspective. It really does. It changes everything. It changes the way you look at it. It changes you from a victim standpoint or a victim mode. I don't even know if I like that so much anymore. And I heard something recently, like ego. It's talking about, what's this tickling? It's talking about your ego basically being your animal instinct, because that's what it was. And it's like, am I operating for my animal right now? Do you know what I mean? Instead of like fight or flight, or, got the claws out, I'm ready to attack because someone said something against me. And then you go the opposite direction of that, just being in that space of love. And it's not that we didn't receive love, because we received love at the capacity of someone else was able to give it when we were kids. But it is like as if we came into this space, like going back to that space of love. We came in with love, but it's a not even, probably not even in the comparison of what the love is that we felt while we're in the non-physical, while we're spirit people. We probably feel that love, from what I understand from the NDEs and everything else, that love is like, it's all encompassing. I think in that space, you could be nothing more than love. Like, you could be nothing more than love. You would not be in a space of judgment with love. You would not be a conditional love, because that's all here. That's all conditional love is here. And it's like, when we start learning that we have that unconditional love for ourselves, then it's like it just affects everything outside of us. Everything shows up just to please us, like in our experience. And if you're not there yet, it's just little baby steps. It's not even that I was looking to get there, but like you said, we went from it where it was harder, because for me, my life was hard. It was all harder then. It's easier now. And you're right, you just put words to how I exactly feel. It's because the more and more that I feel this love, or I'm constantly reminding that I'm choosing myself, that I'm choosing love. Well, that doesn't feel good when I'm thinking right now. I choose love, and then automatically my thoughts go to a different direction. Automatically I feel different all the time. And then I see everybody. I don't have a judgment on people when I see them. Now I'm seeing my old patterns would have been like, oh, look at those people over there singing on the street. Nope. Now I'm cracking my window and like listening. Oh, listen to that voice that's on the street. Maybe these people aren't meant to be on the street. Maybe they're meant to be somewhere else, getting to where we can sit and watch a concert with them. This is where my mindset would go to, because it's just where you just start out where you can start out. That's it. And it's like, and I wasn't in a space of judgment. So before I was driving through town, I'm like, holy shit, Kingman is nothing like Kingman used to be. Like, this is not Kingman. This is not. But guess what? Kingman could use a change. It could. And before I would have thought, oh, and even recently, I was like, oh no, Kingman, it's probably time for us to go. It's time for us to move on out of here and go on to some other place, because this isn't why I was here initially. I like the peace and the quiet and all this other stuff, but we need, maybe the need's not the right word, but there's a desire for more here, for culture, for so much more. And it's been lacking my whole life that I've lived here in this town. So there's been a lot of things that are changing. And it's like, we can sit and look at it all negative, because of course we don't have control over it, right? Or we can start looking at it like, what are the positives of that? Well, look, they have a smile on their face. You know what I mean? There's all these things that are overlooked on something when you're in a space of judgment, because you're obviously probably not smiling at somebody while you're judging them, unless you're in a space of like, how they really look good. You can tell they're really taking good care of themselves or something like that. But a lot of times that's not the case. So it's just, we have opportunities around us all the time to choose love, to have this experience all the time.
Yeah, what triggered this thought about this game and assimilation and Avatar was also, them talking about the Matrix. And so I'm thinking, in the life that I was born into a very thick mud puddle. That's what comes to mind. It's like I had to trudge through this anger and guilt and shame and resentment muddy pit and get myself out of that, which took in human life several years. And so it's just like, I feel like, we're just dumped into this pool and we get to choose. Am I going to stay in this pool of this energy of hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people vibrating at that energy, which I already knew then that it didn't feel good, but I had nobody around me to teach me anything different, right? The most love that I felt and cherished was from my grandmother. And here she's still living in her stuff with her marriage and her life and her experiences. So I didn't have any role models to show me anything different or better that at the time that I was aware of. And we still have a choice. Do I stay in this vibration of all these other people and it doesn't matter. I know that it doesn't matter that, as I move closer to love, I am still connected to the mud pit. I'm still connected to it, because the higher my vibration is, it trickles down. It affects all these people too. So when they say we're connected to this web, we are connected in all ways, up, down, sideways, it doesn't matter. However, I'm more of a benefit for the higher my vibration is, and the closer I move to love, and the easier my life is, and the more joy I experience. I'm better for this world, for this planet, for the population by doing that, because it still affects everybody that is in my vicinity and beyond that, because you and I are here talking, but then it affects the next person who's watching it, and what they do with their vibration or their words, if they take the words or what they've learned from us and share that, or implement it in their life and share it by being an example, now it's affecting even more people. So we just have to understand, no matter where you're at in life and what you're experiencing, the lower vibrational emotions is the sense of I have created, or there is distance between me and love, me and source, me and God, me and the divine. And it's to close that gap. That's the game. That's the up level. That's getting to the next level, is closing that gap and getting closer to that connection of love. And whether you feel it's an outside source like God, universe, divine, whatever that might be, or it's just an internal knowingness of connection to love, because you know the difference. Love and fear, you know the difference between those two. You know the difference between love and anger, love and guilt, love and resentment. You know, love and harsh judgment. You know what feels good and what doesn't feel good. And moving more in the space of what feels good helps up level you in closing that gap.
Well, it's like everything, that's what's so brilliant about this year. It's introspective. And the more that each person evolves and works through their stuff without even trying to, it ripples out without even trying to. It's an automatic. It automatically happens. We've talked about this for so long, and we talked about it in even smaller ways, about how every time we change something within ourselves that was probably something that was handed down to us from our parents or ancestors, that it affects our kids without even saying anything to them. You don't even have to say anything. It's not even, it's just learning how to be yourself. I've been being myself so much lately, and it's like, I don't even care. I've been goofy and silly, and I'll sing about all kinds of different stuff, and I say my things, whatever I say. And it's like, it's amazing when you start go out and you're pursuing that. I'm going to find out who I am. What do I like? What are all these, what do I want in my life? When you start doing all this, everything starts changing. It feels different. And I don't even care what people think. I mean, before I cared, I don't care. And it's not like, I don't care, fuck you. It's, I don't care, because that's not, that doesn't, I'm too busy doing my own thing. Like I'm in a space, I choose love. Like when you're in that space, you're not feeding all the other stuff. Your ego is not trying to be stoked all the time. Gosh, you know that Suzanne Giesman's, her app that she has out there right now is really, really pretty brilliant. And then it's like, it gives you like a story or something that Sanaya, I think, is probably at some point, or, different experiences that she has had put into this program. So you can get inspiration every day, basically. And then, sorry, there was some noise underneath, or you can get inspiration every day. And then it's like, you can even ask yourself a question, and it's like, you can hit on the inspire button after that. And it's like, it's amazing how the answers come up to give you insight into something. So we have like all this, but I would have missed out on all that stuff if I was not just being me, and I was like, oh God, I can't be doing that right now, because that might be, no one would like this. If I was doing this right now, people aren't going to understand it. So I'm not going to read it or listen to it or anything like that. It's like none of that stuff even matters anymore. It's like I'm on this journey, but I also at the same time know this affects, just like you were saying, it affects everybody else, even the animals, even the earth. Everything is being affected by it. And by being in this space of love and joy, it's besides that feels good, right? It just spreads out to everybody. You could hear someone laughing. You could be at the store. Well, if you hear a baby laughing, it's like you automatically, most people want to just start laughing. and where your eyes are watering because
Yeah.
it feels so good. This is like such a trigger of feeling good. But we don't pursue those kind of things. We don't go looking for that. But
And
that's what we could be doing.
yeah. And, listening, I know both of us been listening to those near-death experiences quite a bit. Your most mediums that I listen to or have heard, near-death experience people, people who are actually walking in the path of spirituality, every single one of them talks about love. Every person who's had a near-death experience, their life has changed. Now, there's two sides to that coin. One is they didn't want to come back and they were pissed because they had to come back for whatever reason and live the rest of their life angry about not being able to actually transition in that moment. But majority, there are a few that have done that, but majority of them say when they came back, their whole entire life, like they were changed 180 degrees, wasn't even the same person. And they had to learn that about themselves based on what they experienced in their near-death experience, but also the people around them and the people around them. So the more we change, the more we move from a lower vibrational emotional pool and closing that gap to love, that not all the people that are in your life may not stay. You may not stay close to them in relationship as you are right now. There might become a gap between you and them. And that's okay. And people just, it's important to understand that the people who's on your train right now or in your mud puddle right now, if you climb out of the mud puddle, you're out of the mud puddle. They choose to stay in the mud puddle. Now you can lend a hand down to help them up, or you can be resourceful and tell them how to get out of the mud puddle. Or your option is jump in the mud puddle and try to push them out, right? There's all kinds of options, but it comes down to people aren't going to get out of the mud puddle till they're ready. Because even if you got back in the mud puddle and was trying to push them up and out, they could just be clawing at the side and never get anywhere. Right. And then they fall back down exhausted, and you're exhausted because you're trying to fix them, help them out when they're not ready to get out. So then your choice, stay with them in the mud puddle or get out and be an example. And if you get out of when you get out of the mud puddle, those people are either going to come along or they're not. And it's not for us to grasp onto them and drag them kicking and screaming, because neither one of you are going to find any joy in that. Trust me, I've tried that. But yeah, just be okay with knowing the relationships are going to change. People are there's going to be distance between you and people you are comfortable with. And it opens up doors for other and new people to come in who are going to be vibrating at that I use level. It's not that you're better than anybody else, nor am I. But as a human in our brain to understand, we're moving to a higher vibrational level, that those people will then, there's going to be new people at that level to connect with, who you'll be vibrating with. And you know what? They may evolve and move on. And then you're going to create other connections, or you might evolve and move on. And so it's just a constant, relationships to me are constant evolution. And at some point, those people who stayed in the mud puddle might surprise you and end up right there with you 6 months, 10 years, doesn't matter. It's in their terms, not yours. But your your avatar in your game is to get closer to love as a spirit and body.
And create. We're here to create.
Yeah.
We really are. Like, see what can we do while we're here? And those are good questions. There's like so many things to ask yourself about that. It's back to asking questions of yourself.
Yeah.
Really, it is. If you want to have more, if you want to evolve and not just be in the same place anymore. I'm constantly having conversations with my team, constantly, because the old template doesn't work for me anymore, and trying to move forward into this new paradigm shift, it doesn't. I can't move forward with the old template. I can't. It's just not possible anymore. So it's like all that stuff has fallen away, and that does make us so much different. And I kept thinking about the mud puddle, and I'm thinking, yeah, the kids. My mind just automatically goes to play, right? So the kids are in playing. So if you're in that mud puddle, start playing, and whoever's going to go with you, because they're liking the vibrational frequency that you're at, they're just going to climb right out, right? Instead of us having to do, and this is a daily thing, instead of us having to fix anything or make somebody else see. It's not for them to see. There was a time that I could not see any of this stuff. None of this that would have made sense to me. It'd be all poppycock, really, like all of it. Like none of it would make any sense to me. None of it to push this. And I remember even thinking about when we were talking about this stuff early on and love and stuff. And it's like, what was one of the things I think you said a long time ago that you were here to teach about love, or I don't know, we were talking about something, but it's been years ago. And it's like, how do you teach something that you don't even know, right? You just teach it as you go, right? That's all you do.
Sure.
But that made me ask for questions, because I didn't know that was what I was missing in life. Because, we think, oh, my bank account's missing some of this. My kids are missing some clothes. I'm missing a new vehicle, all these things. We would look at all these things that we're missing, or that we think that we don't have, but what we didn't take time to notice was I didn't have that love for myself. I didn't feel that unconditional love. Love was not even the focus. It was all those other things. It was all these material things that we were led to believe.
But
And
your
it's not
love,
anything wrong.
but your love at that time, the definition was conditional love, though.
Yeah, well, you loved the time, but that was limiting. It was all limiting. You didn't get to experience the fullness of anything. And what does it do? It leaves you wanting more all the time. You're never satisfied. But when you're in that space of love, you're satisfied. And then everything else just kind of comes along to celebrate the party with you.
Yeah. And that's why I said maybe instead of a mud puddle, I should use the
Oh,
word.
no, I wasn't saying, you didn't say anything wrong with it. No, you didn't say anything wrong, but I just automatically stopped playing in it.
Right. And which is great, because you can change the vibration of that mud puddle while you're in it. And as a team, some of you could get out, right?
Yeah.
But at the same time, if it's really thick crap you're going through, you might think of it as sludge, like you just, bleh, right? But conditional love. So we knew the love of the people that were around us. We knew what that looked like through them, right? Through
because
our
they
parents.
said, right? Because they would say, I love you, but then their actions wouldn't really match up with what they were giving to us.
Right. And so there was confliction in the understanding of love, especially being a child who had just come from source, right? Our spirit had just come from source, who unconditionally loves us no matter what. And we're coming to the human body where somebody says they love us and then turns around and hits us or screams at us or isolates us or whatever, whatever conditions you might have experienced. So in human form, looking back, I recognize that learning self-love was part of my assignment here. And I mean, learn it from a human's perspective. Spirit knows love. Spirit knows unconditional love. And I feel like that's part of I actually equate this to depression, that we get so much space between us and that love that we felt unconditionally in spirit. In human form, we don't receive that unconditional love. And so that there's a huge gap between the physical and the spiritual. And so then there's the depression. It's no different than the person who had a near-death experience. They feel that unconditional love, and then they come back into the physical body. Now they're angry, when even more so than they were before the near-death experience, because they felt that unconditional love, and that's what they want. And that's where depression comes to also, is that we have such a gap between us and love and source God, that we yearn for that feeling, but we don't know how to identify it or know exactly what it is, because we don't know what it is based on what we've been taught as a human. And so you have to learn for yourself, what is love? What's the definition of love? And it is not to expect it from somebody else. It's to expect it from yourself. It is to love yourself, self-love, because this is your container. This is my container. And it's my duty. It's my job in this lifetime, as my avatar, in my assimilation, to love my container, fill my container up with love. And if that's splashing around in the mud puddle, then that's what it's going to be. If it's being a teacher and I'm learning and I'm teaching and I'm learning, I'm teaching, that's what it's going to be. If it's just doing a podcast once a week with Bev, that's what it's going to be. But as long as I am expressing love towards myself, you can't express love towards yourself and then turn around, look in the mirror and say, oh my God, look at those wrinkles. Look at that muffin top. Look at that cellulite. Look how big my feet are. They don't equate. There's two different vibrations, two different energetic levels. You're just right back into the mud sludge in that moment. So practicing what love is in loving yourself. And so that was I think that was my major for this lifetime, for my PhD in life, is self-love. And then as I learn it, the way I benefit of being here is to help others understand that too, and teach them.
You know, the mud puddle is actually represents so much, because you can think about it even as your ancestral pool, right?
Right.
And
Yeah.
it's like, so just by being in that puddle and by us changing, so the introspection for 7 year, right? Just like us going in for that introspection, the introspection is going to take you to love, because that's really what this is about. And there's many people that can come into that space and have an understanding and honoring of self from that space. Then we're automatically changing everything that's in that mud puddle, that pool. We're changing everything in it. And then it's like, I could now it changed from the beginning of the conversation, you know, how it could be a struggle because we're trying to get out, and some people are struggling at the side because they think they want out, but they don't realize how they're holding themselves in that space. And then the others are like, oh gosh, Amy just got up out of here with a smile on her face, laughing, and went out of here after I saw her just playing, splashing in the water, like mud going everywhere, but we were all laughing. We didn't care. We were having a blast. And then it's like, then turning around and throwing a bunch of seeds for flowers in that mud puddle, because who knows what's going to happen. But we're already doing that, because that's what we're doing. We're changing everything, and we're throwing those seeds. We're planting seeds everywhere we go. So even as you're going, not you, but as everybody's going through this evolution, I mean, not just you, but as everyone's going through this evolution, we're planting all these seeds all around us. And that's why it's so important really to really feel about how things feel for you, really get in touch with your feelings for yourself, and for words, and for, you know, how somebody treats someone else. How does that feel within inside of you? Like, and then examining not that from within inside of you, not examining outside of you with judgment, but examining, why does this trigger me? Why did this show up for me? Why am I even having an awareness of this right now? And it's just being in that different space, because everything that you're doing is planting seeds, you're cultivating. Everybody is changing. The world is changing so fast right now. It really is. And it's like this year, you know, it could go any way, but I really feel, to me, it feels like it's really going to propel us even forward, further, faster, which is kind of scary for some people. So then you have some people that won't stick around in this physical earth realm, because they're not meant to stay in this realm anymore, because they're not evolving through the vibration. They know that this is their time to go. And a lot of us are here because we're like opening the doors and throwing down seeds everywhere we go. We got flowers and abundance growing all around us, and then we're bringing people along with us, not because we're dragging them, but because they just want to fall, because they want something more, because they want to follow along, because this feels better. Because, oh, well, love, that's like a weird concept. Let's think about that. Let's see, what does that even look like? Is that really even going to do anything for me? It does everything for you guys. Believe me, I can just tell you, it does everything.
Yeah.
And the more and more you spend time in it, the easier and easier it gets. And then you don't, like we've talked about before, and I think that's where the recognition comes into play, is when we go through these experiences and we have these highness, because it does feel like a higher, you can feel the vibration, the frequency, it feels higher. You feel high. I mean, and high is not really the best terminology, but it's a higher state of mind. It's a higher vibrational frequency, and you feel it. And so when it dips at all, it feels so uncomfortable. It's like you got a teeny tiny little sliver under your finger that feels like you got a whole tree growing there, because it feels that dramatic. It feels like it's so much bigger than it really is. But because once you get used to living in the other space of love, everything else just doesn't feel good. It feels very dramatic. It feels overdone. Same thing.
Yeah. A couple things when you said, you get out of the mud puddle and we're throwing flower seeds. What came to mind, because I guess I have Avatar on my brain, the movie, that when in the world of Avatar, that every time they took a step, the path lit up. And I've seen it in other animations, that they take a step and everything gets brighter, and maybe the flowers open bigger. And so that's what we're doing. We're planting those seeds. We're leaving a path. We're leaving a trail. Like, this is what I did. This helped me. This is what you could do. These are the steps to take. And that's what each teacher's doing, is we're just throwing out these flower seeds to brighten the world up for you, so that you can have hope, for one, right? Bring hope to you that, you can get through this life. The other thing that I feel is being overused way too much now, especially since 2020 with the pandemic, is the word unknown. I'm like, from what point in our entire life has anything been known? We don't know if we're going to wake up tomorrow. I don't know if I'm going to be alive this afternoon. Right? That's unknown. I don't know if my husband's going to come home. That's unknown. I don't know, there may be some kind of devastation tomorrow. I don't know. That's unknown. Or tomorrow, everything might just shift in a blink of an eye and everything's great. I don't know. That's unknown, right? Nothing has been known in our entire life. Nothing. Nothing. And since the pandemic, that's been the focus. We're in this unknown time. Things are they've always been unknown. So I think that's become a habit for most people, that we're so focused on, oh my God, what's going to happen now? Oh my God, what's going to happen next? Like 2020, 2021 really heightened that fight, flight, freeze type of reptilian brain in us again. Like, we already had it. A lot of us recognize we have it, and we're having the intention of not living in that space as much. We still need it for certain circumstances. But then 2020 and 2021 really intensified that, because of everything that was happening. And it was like the word unknown became, I think now is such, and I say that because I've heard other speakers say it recently in their like in their ads or in their podcasts. And I'm like, nothing's ever been known. So
we can look at that. We could look at that just a little bit differently too, because that's one perspective of it. And I get where you're coming from with that. But like the other perspective would be letting people know, because how many times have you heard people say, I know. Right. So this is like a bigger way of taking a lot of those people, like creating a ripple. It could be, so my perspective, it could be a different ripple effect, because that ripple effect could be that we don't want people to think that they know everything, and it's okay to not know what we're going into. It's okay to know go into the unknown, because like you just said, we've always been going into the unknown. When we were born, we didn't know there. You never knew when you were going to start crawling, if you were going to crawl, if you're going to just go to walking. Like there was always, nobody ever really knew, but they knew. No, but they really never knew. But none of them really ever knew.
Somebody
So
knew.
if we look at it, every time that they say that we're welcome to the unknown, then what kind of a spin? Because that's an energy now. We want to change that energy just a little bit. So every time that comes out, what perspective will we want to have when we hear that? So instead of it having a negative connotation, not saying that your view was a negative, because it wasn't, but what kind of a view could I have every time I hear the word unknown? Oh yeah, like this is an adventure. This is exciting. Like change.
Possibilities.
Do what?
Possibilities.
Exactly, right? And
Yeah.
it also creates an opportunity for asking, because it's unknown. Well, I don't know how to proceed from here. Soul, higher self, God, because to me, from my perspective, my soul is God. Like that is God. That is everything. So I'll be in that spirit, when I'm in this with the spirit people, that'll be my spirit. But I have God's within inside of me anyway. So that all this is within inside of me. So it's like, I can go from this space and then look at every single thing. It's like, oh, because we're creators, right? We're back to the avatar. So now I'm seeing, oh, he says the unknown. So this is what this means to me. And it's like I create this ripple effect without even doing anything. I don't have to affect anything. And I've changed the way it feels. So then people, when they hear that, they aren't going to feel anything negative or scary about it, because that's how it's kind of been led, right? Because that from what you're telling me, that is when a lot of them are saying that, they are leading from a fear energy when they're saying like that. Like, oh God, we're going into the unknown. There's no flashlights here, guys, and we've frozen all of your accounts. So, silly stuff like that, but really guiding with fear. And it's every moment, because we're this avatar, we have the opportunity to perceive anything we want to perceive it. Does it make me flighty? Well, if someone else thinks that I'm flighty, that's their judgment call. That's not mine. From where I'm at, it feels good. And from my life that I'm living, this is how I'm living it. I'm seeing things and I'm changing what that feels like. I'm sending out streams of grace, right? And if anyone's listening to that, oh, now I'm going to tap on there. I'm getting my stapler and I'm just going to staple streams of grace to unknown, just so everybody gets it and receives it so differently. Because once we become in a neutral place of that, then they no longer, whoever's using it for ways of manipulation, no longer have control over us. They can no longer dictate how we're going to move forward, because now, welcome to the world, guys. Because even all you people thought you had control of everything, welcome to the unknown.
And then I want to hit on that too, because as you were talking, what came to me, you said, well, we're creative beings. If we're creative beings, what we've been thinking about is a projection into our future. We already know what's coming. We do already know.
Spirit does.
Right.
So as soon as you're like, okay, I want you to show me like you show me what you want to show me. And then they already know our path, because there's no time, right? There's no past, present, or future. There's nothing like that. Everything is right now. So they know what's lining up in our time, space, reality for us to be able to see, so that we know that they're here with us.
Yeah. And, I had a conversation with my mentor. She's a psychic medium. And, I can ask her these deeper questions. And I asked her one day, this was almost a year ago, I asked her this question. I said, okay, because I had heard before, more than once, that if you watch movies from years ago, like we're talking 90s, 80s, like years ago.
Oh, I thought you were going back to like even the 70s and 60s.
Well,
I used to love watching the old movies. Okay.
They have a projection of what we're experiencing now. In fact, I was watching a series, and one of the episodes, and this has happened more than once, the episode, and we're talking about 10 years ago, the episode's talking about pandemics, people walking around with masks on. And so with all that information, I asked her, I said, okay, so is it the writers of these movies downloading information that's turns into a movie for all of us to see, showing us what's coming? Or is it the writers and the producers making the movies, and so many people are focused on that at one time? Because, right, blockbuster movies, when they come out, how many thousands and thousands of people go watch it, or millions of people go watch it? Now we're all focused on that, and then it becomes truth. Two sides of the coin there. Is it a premonition, or is it we're focused on it and creating it?
What if it's all of the above?
And that's what she said. She's like, yep.
Because it is. Because it is, right? Because whenever you watch a movie, it's just like when we hear someone else talk about an experience. We hear someone talk about a near-death experience that is phenomenal, and what they experience, we might consider it phenomenal. When we go through that whole experience, that created possibility. Those
Yep.
movies created possibility. Does it have to be that way? No.
Yeah.
In a world that's being controlled, now you can say, oh God, they were telling us all along they were going to be running us. We're going to be in freaking
Conspiracy
cattle
theory.
ranches, and you could be in that fierce place. But on the other side, it could be just the same thing as us using the word unknown. We can totally tack on different energy vibrational frequencies to that and change it.
So
It's
the
like we're
question,
constantly do what to possibility. Is that what you said?
yeah, and the question is it really unknown? And my answer right now, after having this conversation, is no. It's not unknown. Like you said, our spirit knew.
Yeah.
Our spirit already knows. Source
Yes.
already knows. And
Yes.
we've laid that path. We've laid all that out. We're
Yes.
creating beings who have contributed to what's going on. We don't like the school system. Great. Guess what's breaking down? We don't like politics. Great. Look what is in the uproar. We don't like racism. Great. Look what happened. Right. We don't contribute enough focus on our health. Look what happened. Right. I mean, you just look, it's a collective, and people are still thinking that we are individuals, which in fact we are to have our human life, but energetically we're all contributing to the collective consciousness.
Yes. And this stuff has to come to the surface in order for us to shine a light on it, to
Yeah.
really kind of diffuse it, so it finally goes away for now and forever, right? It's not
That's like,
necessary any longer.
that's like our
So
own
if it doesn't,
process.
exactly. But that's the whole thing. So this whole year, this is an exciting year. This is an exciting year, even from, I think, our perspective, even us coming together and having these conversations, because we're having the experience as well. But what paved the way for us is we had an acknowledgement that we were in a 7-year, and acknowledging how it felt. Because there was a few times that you had even talked about that, like you would have an idea where you were going, like you would know, and then all of a sudden it's like nothing was going that way. You could try to, that my 7-year was, here I am trying to get my truck fixed. I'm trying to do these things. I'm trying to find it, keep my truck because it's paid in full. And if I do some things to it, blah, 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 it's all good, right? I'm controlling, right? All this stuff. And it's like, it got taken out of my hands. It got totaled. So then it's like, it wasn't, and really it was like my soul saying, tear that sheet off of the book. It's time for you. You're like, get out of this chapter. We're already in chapter 17 and you're still hanging on to chapter 5. Like, move on, man. And so that was kind of a lot of the stuff. It's just us learning how to let go of this stuff. Anything that we feel like is permanent in our lives, you probably need to let go of that control over it. Because this is the year that you're going to recognize that none of that stuff is going to have that same matters, or it's not going to matter to you. The material stuff is not going to matter. The ego being stoked by making the most money and doing all these things. You can have all those things, but it's not going to come from that space. It's just coming from a space of, like I said before, you're just in a space of love, and you're just having fun, and you're enjoying life, and you're doing things. And next thing you know, you look in your account and you got $1 billion. Hey, rock star, it's just that simple. It's just that simple. And you mentioned last week, and I have asked myself this over and over and over again, and I'm not going to say it exactly the same way, but you had mentioned about asking about what blocks we have. Like, what do I have a block that's holding me back on this situation? Or it wasn't exactly in those terms, but it's like, I've asked myself that in a lot of different ways. And it's so fun, because it's like playing a game, and it's like, there's that. And it's so weird, because the more you start doing that stuff, the more that you start recognizing how much you're changing, how much your thoughts aren't even the same anymore. And then you catch yourself even when it's so amazing because I'll catch myself just even in my thoughts, anything that I'm saying. And it's after I've asked these questions. I've asked these questions. Okay, well, why do I have a block? Do I have a block? And instead of saying, oh, I know, I don't have a block. No, I'm fine. I don't have, because I have done that before too. I'm like, no, I don't have blocks regarding money. Is my fucking account full of money? No.
I'm like, how much money
Okay.
you got?
Exactly. So then it's like, what? Okay. So then I'm throwing out the bullshit card, Bev. Right there. I just laid it on the counter. Bullshit cards out. So then start asking the questions, right? Because I was that I know person. So I like I want to say I like the unknown, but it's like as soon as I started to say that, I was like, slam on the brakes with that one. But it's
Possibilities.
But like you said, it is all possibilities, and that's all that it is. And like we just talked about on another level, none of it's unknown. Like we all know, right?
Yeah.
It's just a fear space. To me, that feels like such a fear space that someone else has promoted for a long time.
Yeah. And you keep bringing up that it's a 7-year, which we've talked about in previous episodes. 7-year being 2023, 2 plus 0 plus 2 plus 3 is 7. So 7 is about introspection. And earlier when you were talking, I was like, okay, well, I'm in a 1 year. So I went back to see when I was in a 7-year, which was 2020. And in 2020, so I had, even though I've been teaching and coaching and doing things to build my confidence, I still had a lack of self-confidence in some areas. And in 2020, that was my 7-year introspection, right? Going within, taking a look at myself, looking back from this day today, looking back on that, I remember what I was doing. We couldn't do anything in person. So coaches and teachers and everything started doing everything online. Well, then I had to learn how to connect different apps and programs to talk to one another. So it was all automated. So when somebody signed up for a class, they paid, they got the schedule, they got the link to join the class, and then, get the emails for like having all of that automated. I had to learn how to do that. That took like 2 months for me to learn how to get about, I think it was 4 different apps to talk to one another integrated. So all that now I could schedule a class and all that is taken care of, right? So what did that do for me in learning all of that stuff using YouTube and the help on each of those apps or programs? Built my confidence, built confidence in myself. Because when I hit the button and all of that happened, I was like, oh, I did that all by I didn't call tech support. I didn't reach out to anybody. I sat with YouTube, push, play, pause, do something, push, play, pause, do something, right? And that's how I kept learning what buttons needed to be pushed and all that. And that built my confidence. And so
That's
I was
very
like,
important.
how cool is that? So if anything, 2020 can help you or your 7-year can help you too.
Well, because then you start moving all the stuff out of the way that was blocking your amazingness.
Yeah.
It just goes back to that part of the conversation we were just talking about, removing the blocks or having them presented to you so you can understand that you even have blocks within you. So it's just evolving through all that, and everything's so different after that. It just feels different. Now, we've all had, especially at our ages, we've had the 1 through 10 year or 9 year. We've had it, and now we're just but now it's an awareness, right? Now we're in an awareness of it. That's different. That changes everything. So with that being said, how does your 1 year feel so far?
My 1 year so far is laying a foundation. So it's taking some things that I learned last year, creating a foundation with it, and then rinse and repeat, right? And the way you get better at something is you practice. You got to keep doing it.
Yep.
And I also had a lady who did a quick reading for me. She goes, this year is going to be about, she didn't use the word experiment. but basically like trial and error.
Mhm.
You know, try something and adjust and just keep. So it's laying that foundation. It's like, what's going to work?
So you're
So
creating something new. You're creating something new this year,
yeah,
but with all the stuff you've learned already. Would
right.
that be a good assessment? Okay.
So I've gathered my tools from the other levels of the game
Yes.
for this level for my now 1 year, personal 1 year. And now I'm going to take my toolbox or toy box and implement and utilize the information I have and see what happens. And what do? I keep showing up. I keep going. I keep showing up. I keep going. Still from, geez, I'm 52. So since I was little, since I was younger, I would say probably around my early, turning teenager, that is when that mantra started becoming my focus. Just keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going. And it wasn't me, Amy, saying it. It was my spirit telling me to do that. Because I was fucking done. I was done. I was done. I was done. I wanted to just throw in the towel and say, God, take me now. I'm done. But my spirit's like, nope, keep going. Keep going, keep going, keep going. It's like your teacher, your school teachers in your ear. Do it again.
Yeah.
Do it again.
Yeah.
Do it again. Do it again. It's like, oh. But I'm glad I did, because otherwise I wouldn't be here with you right now. So having these incredible conversations.
Amen, sister.
Right. So do you have any final words? It's a good conversation today. I liked it. It was good.
It was a good conversation today. It really was. So I would just say, love yourself. You gotta love yourself. I mean, really, learning. This is the year.
Well, I wanted to share a real quick story. So Suzanne Giesmans, we've talked about her sip of the divine, sit in peace,
Love it.
3-minute meditation.
Yeah.
Okay, so on I wrote this down so I remember to tell you, January 5th. I did her sip of the divine.
Okay.
And I always have, whenever I meditate, I have pen and paper, and she even says, have something to write down, whatever comes to you. So I'm sitting there and it's a 7. Like, okay. So I wrote down 7. 7 is not significant to me personally, other than what we've been talking about being a 7 year. But I knew it didn't pertain to that. And so I wrote down 7 on a kind of a scrap piece of paper, and I just set it aside on my desk. And later in the day, I did an oracle card reading. And when I do a card reading, like virtual card reading, I will shuffle the cards, and then I tell the client, pick a number between 1 and 10. And then I take from the top of the deck, count down to the number that they picked, and flip that card. So essentially they're picking the card, makes it feel more like they're picking the card. The very first number she picks is 7. And then in the reading, she had 7 of air and 7 of earth. I was like, oh, you guys are good. It's just, you can't make this stuff up. I mean, you can't.
But that's grounding in spirit, like, right?
Yeah.
If you wanted to be generic about it, just very generic about it.
But it's,
So
I just want to point out, because we've talked about this almost every week since we've been doing this, is listening to your intuitive guidance, that it will be shown, but it's up to me to be present in the moment.
yes.
Right? Because as soon as she said, I said, okay, pick a number between 1 and 10. And she said 7. In my head, I just smiled. I went, oh man, you guys are good. Right? And it was like, Suzanne is very, evidence. She wants evidence that she's connecting with spirit.
And it's all synchronistic too.
Yeah. And so, I mean, how, there you go. It's just
Because there's
great.
proof, right?
Just so
It's there
fun.
all around you. Yeah, and then you also know that that message was for you too. I was smiling because I looked out the window and I can see a hint of a rainbow, which is
Nice.
awesome. Yeah,
I love
super
it.
cool.
All right, my friends. So I think we've come to a conclusion that the unknown is just equates to possibilities. And so
Yeah.
we'll open our world to maybe implementing that idea moving forward. So anytime anybody says we're in unknown times or the future is unknown, well, what I would say to that now is no shit. Right? Like, duh. We know the future is unknown, but do we really? So, but think of it as possibilities, and also know that you are a creator and you are creating your future. And your
Yeah.
future, what you're putting into your brain and creating, affects collective consciousness. So
Yeah, so go play in the mud and plant some seeds.
oh, and there's one other thing. When you said mud, that playing in the mud, what happens when you splash, right? It gets all over and everywhere.
Yeah,
Well,
it's
if we're
fun.
all covered in mud, there's no difference. We're all the same. Inside, we're all the same. Have an amazing week. Make it incredible, playful, be mindful, be present. It's 11:11 right now.
Love it.
I know. All right, my friends. We'll see you next week.
And have a wonderful week.